Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I am sending this experience, and you will be the second person I have ever told about this. The first person went back here the summer after I told him about this and has never talked to me about my story or his trip back there. We slowly lost contact over time, and I think this is the reason why. In 1978, I was elk hunting west of a town called Dubois in Wyoming. I was on my way back to town for a hot meal, gas, and restocking my food supplies, as I was camping in a tent in the backcountry. I was on the highway going west of town coming in and found a man wearing only hunting shoes, a heavy shirt, and a goose-down vest. In Wyoming in the middle of October then, this was definitely underdressed. Daytime temps were at a high of the 30s at best, and nights were in single digits or lower. Well, he got out in the road and started waving his arms wildly and begging to stop. I saw his eyes had a trail of tears on his face trailing down in the dirt on it. I pulled over to the side of the deserted road to see what his problem was. I thought it might be a wreck on the icy spots of the highway. Little did I know this would change my life thinking and the way I hunted by myself up here forever. He ran to my side of the pickup, and I could see he was very scared about something. He grasped the pickup and begged me with tears in his eyes to take him to town. I couldn't say no to this man. I asked him if he was in a wreck or something. He said,
"No, just please get me out of here. I need to go somewhere safe."
I thought it odd that he would say this, and as I had my right hand on a pistol in my lap, "Guys, you never know," I said to get in. He looked around at the tree line along the roadway and again ran to the passenger side of the pickup. As he was coming around the truck, I put the pistol in a side pocket of the door, and he got inside and locked the door and made sure the window was up, again watching the tree line. "Go please," was all he said. I started back towards town, and I then noticed the scratches on his face, clothes, and hands, and his whole body was shaking. After we went a couple of miles, he somewhat slowed down on rechecking the tree line and passenger rear view mirror. "You okay, buddy?" I asked. He stared at me for many seconds and just broke down crying like a little kid.
"Yeah, but don't think I'm a crazy man. I just had some shit happen and I ain't going back there for nothing. I hope the guys are okay."
He composed himself some and started to explain.
"I'm hunting here with two buddies, and we always hunt below Brooks Lake when we come to Wyoming. Usually we get elk or deer, never go home skunked here, just love it. I was going along a trail I had been on many times to get to a small overlook to sit a while. It was their turn to push, the elk to me. I was almost there when I walked past this stand of 3 trees close together, and on the other side was this huge lizard. It was standing easily over 6.5 feet tall, golden, bronze color with a vest and short metallic-looking brie. I could tell it was a male, I guess, and he had a black thing in its clawed hand. Its eyes were like cats, and it had a tail. I just stood there with my rifle and my hands across my chest, frozen kind of like. I was looking into the face of death, I just know it. I coughed a little, and its arm with the black thing came up so fast I could hardly see it. Something hit my whole body from my feet to my head, and I fell back on the ground. I don't know if I flew or fell. I just went backwards. It came slowly walking up to me. I could hear it and could only move my eyes slightly as it came into view. It just looked down to me, its mouth slightly open, making a low hissing sound, and its forked tongue slightly coming out of its mouth. Its head turned down looking at me and did this for a few minutes. I could hear it breathing, see the nose holes working, see its chest, muscles tensing and relaxing all over its body. I was just froze there looking up. I couldn't look at it directly, couldn't close my eyes very easy either. Its expression never changed, only the eyes moved sometimes slowly, like sometimes so fast you could hardly see them. On its sleeveless shirt it had a kind of O with a smaller, screwy offset Y and Z, I think. It finally walked away down the trail. I don't know how long I laid there. From the sun movement it was maybe a couple of hours. I could hear the forest sounds, birds, wind, trees, animals going about their day like nothing happened. I would want my arms or legs to move like hell, even fingers. When I could move, every muscle in my body ached as I would use it, like after a workout at the gym or something. I knew if I went downhill I would come to the old creek bottom and hopefully not see him again. I did that. I followed it to the canyon bottom and then to the road, and you... Thanks again. Don't make me get out. I took off my coat. I guess I forgot my rifle cap. I don't need them. I hope Jake and Bobby are okay. I heard something following me when I first got up. It was really heavy sounding and would stop when I stopped, and once or twice I could hear breathing like it did, kind of a raspy wee sound. I would start running or walking again. I couldn't rest.
He told me which motel to let him off at, and I did. He thanked me many times and got out and went to the office. I never saw him again. I thought about the fantastic story and wondered if it was true, what could it be right? I didn't hear anything about someone having problems anywhere around town that fall. I asked about the man the next year at the motel. No one could remember him, and if anyone knew stories about the area, I didn't get specific or anything. I didn't press it. My buddy, whom I was close to and explored stuff like this at every opportunity, was very interested in my story and the location. He took off up there the next summer for a long weekend. I had to work, so couldn't go. I didn't see him until a couple of weeks later. I asked him about it and what he found out. He looked at me and got very serious.
Dude, don't go up there. Promise me, okay?
Was all he said. I could tell he meant it. I would go with this guy sometimes, and he was very analytical and professional when doing things like tapping sounds at cemeteries, exploring ghost haunts, and others. He never acted scared at any time. I have never hunted or been on that side of the highway since then, but have talked to others that have seen large barefoot prints, strange flying stuff, or howls over the years since then around the Wind River Mountains. For what it's worth, I do like to read about the unknown and sometimes explore it, but if it just feels wrong before I start, I leave it alone. Now when I hunt anywhere, I don't fear bears, wolves, or other people, but I am weary of what else might be out there, and always let someone know where I go and when I should be back.
Upon reading online about reptilian beings visiting people, I summoned up my courage to speak out about my experience 7 years ago. In 2005, I lived in Colchester, England with my long-term partner and was working at a local cafe where I met and worked with people who first introduced me to the beliefs surrounding the Illuminati. When I fell pregnant, we decided to move to Australia, where strange things started to happen in my sleep. The first one I remember is waking up not being able to move or talk. It was extremely frightening, and although it happened on several occasions, I was hesitant to tell my partner in case he thought I was crazy. On the contrary, I felt I mentally and spiritually strong, which helped me fight to overcome the forces that were controlling me every time. I also used to see tiny green lights in the corners of my room during the night. One night I was woken to find what I can only describe as a reptile-like creature / being standing over me on 2 legs. It had a frill around his neck that was in a threatened extension, very muscular, and a tail. He was making a hissing noise I felt that was certainly not friendly, looking almost through me when our eyes met, and as previous experiences, I was not able to move or speak and felt paralyzed yet wide awake. In absolute terror, I shut my eyes and opened them, and it was gone. I was beside myself and was in fear of his return. It wasn't the last time I awoke to him. He also came to me in a dream. In my dream, I was sitting at my friend's square table talking with her, and I knew he was there. In my dream, I remember as my friend was talking, I was being coaxed away and taken by him. It felt like an outer body experience, as I could see myself in my dream at the table with her. I knew I was taken. I managed with all of my spirit to fight the strength he had on me, and I remember feeling like I wasn't ready to go and that he'd be back when I was, because after that it didn't return and hasn't. After I had my baby, I remember seeing lights, the same green ones I saw in my room in her cot at night when she woke for feeding. I don't know why this happened to me or why I got a frill neck, but I know I'm not alone and I know I'm not crazy.
I had a weird encounter in November 1988. My ex-wife and I were near Base Lake, Indiana at night and saw some type of craft with many colored lights land nearby. We moved towards it where it was close enough to get a decent look. It was shaped like a triangle with the pointed end at the bottom. It hovered just above the ground, flashing and glowing different colors. Not long later, a door opened on the side and a ramp came out. We started to get out of there when we noticed a weird-looking thing coming down the ramp. It was shaped like a man but looked like a lizard with huge feet. It stopped moving and looked over in our direction. We got out of there. I returned to the spot 2 days later and didn't notice anything. I did experience very bad headaches and body aches for a few days though. What do you think we encountered?
I awoke one night in a state of which I can only explain as a spasm. My body was in a rigid state. I could not move a muscle and felt like something was on top of me. I fought to get movement back in my body. I could not turn my head or move at all. It was like I was having a fight to get control of my body. After a few panic-stricken moments, I could just barely move my fingers, only a little bit. I then felt that there was more than just a spasm. I felt dirty and touched. It was a horrible feeling from deep inside me. I could barely move my toes, again very slightly. My throat felt like it was being held. I could feel something was on top of me. My hands were by my side, but it felt like they were around my own throat, holding tightly. I was using all my might to break free from this spasmodic state. Then I could feel something breathing into my left ear, a sound of a growl-like noise right next to my ear. I struggled to move my head to the left, like breaking free from a stranglehold. I could barely see the outline of a head, a big long head next to my own face. As the spasm-like feeling started to wear off, a tiny bit at a time, I could work out that this thing on top of me looked like a lizard, newt thing. It was like a blending together of all that was around it, or maybe invisible. I'm not very sure which, but I could see it clearly as the seconds passed on. It was reptilian. I growled at it, or I think I did. My mind and my body gave all it could to do so. I bared my teeth at it and I could feel it could read my mind. I was swearing at it and shouting all sorts of obscenities at it. I felt violated and used. The next thing, it was quickly off of me and was standing to one side of the bottom of my bunk bed. A light came through the thin gap in the curtains. There were different shades of a golden light which also had very small particles inside it, like dust or small stars which moved around like little bright lights. This reptilian creature was about 6 feet tall. I could sense it was either proud or happy with itself, maybe both. I tried to sit up as best I could and through my mind I swore at it again. The creature walked forward and stepped into the light beam. As it did, the feet and legs vanished into the light. The more the creature moved forward towards the window, the more of it vanished. After it was gone I felt relaxed, but I could still feel where I was held around my throat. I felt I was assaulted by this horrendous monster. I awoke to a bright sunny day. I could hear my mother downstairs, washing up and doing housework. I laid in my bed and didn't move a muscle. I ran the incident through my mind again. And, yes, I could still feel where I was held around my throat. I know this happened. My mind, heart and soul knows that this happened. For the life of me, I could not run downstairs to explain to my mother about this. Who would have believed it? How would my parents have handled such a thing? I did not know what to do. Since that night, my stepfather passed away. I asked my mother if she believed in aliens or UFOs. She replied that my stepfather said once that he saw a UFO near Bright, East Sussex while at sea in the 1960s, and he swore that it was a UFO, but only told my mother this. I never told my mother about my experience, as I thought it would be too harrowing for her to hear. What do I do about my experience? I would love to do something about it. It may help somebody, as I am being very honest. Things like this should be disclosed. An answer has to be found on why this is happening.
Location: Knox, Indiana. Date: November 8, 1988. Time: late night. The 12-year-old witness had gotten up to get a drink of water when a flash of multicolored light attracted his attention to the yard. He turned the lights on and walked over to the large picture window in the living room. Looking out, he saw a large diamond-shaped object resting on the lawn. It had flashing multicolored lights around its edge and appeared to be made out of copper-like metal. An escalator-like device now appeared from the object's left rear edge and slid down to the ground. A small humanoid now appeared and walked down the escalator and disappeared behind the object. Moments later, the being reappeared and began walking towards the house. The humanoid was described as 5 foot 3 inches tall with normal arms with what appeared to be claws and strange, double feet. The being wore a belt and a buckle and appeared to have some type of symbols across its chest. It had a large nose, large square mouth, and huge dark brown eyes. The skin was lizard-like green with scales and wrinkled. The witness became frightened as the being approached. Suddenly the neighbor's dog began barking, and the being stopped, turned its head around and looked directly at the witness. The next thing the witness remembered was seeing the object lift off silently and disappear into the sky. Ground traces were reportedly found the next day.
The following is an older Mutual UFO Network report. Escondido, California, 2018-04-28. Around 3:30 a.m. I had sleep paralysis. I could not move and was frozen. It started to get quiet and I live next to a freeway. The windows are always open, so it's always loud. I am curious how they always find me. The last house was a nightmare. It's been very quiet here for about 1 year. There is a sound that is hard to explain. My ears popped. There is a small sonic boom and crackle with it, followed by, well, I guess the only way to put it is hearing a ringing of deafening proportion. They must have been around all day. You know when they are there because they glimmer and sparkle, like a flash of light. I was seeing them all that morning walking around the property. You can call me crazy all you want, but when you have been dealing with this like I have since I was a child, you start to recognize certain glitches in the system, so to speak. There's static in the air, but it is just so draining. I can't move. Everything is going dark. It's as if you dim the night more, if that is even possible to imagine. I can feel myself slipping away. The feeling is like someone drugged you with a huge sleep sedative. Full force sleep paralysis. They use this tactic all the time. Most can't handle it, so they give in, or get stuck in the in-between stage, as I like to call it, where you're completely frozen but still aware of your surroundings. The buzzing is starting to fade, but the feeling this time is so strong and angry. It's building, the rage. Fight or flight is kicking in. Overwhelming sense of awareness is hovering over me. Short sparkles followed by a huge shadow starts to appear. I can finally start to see, but getting dizzy. Eyes are starting to focus on what it is that I was seeing. Then there it was. As I looked up out of bed, I saw a tall, red, slender-toned body. Very fleshy looking. Reptilian looking around the head, but also had a very normal depiction of what a gray alien would look like. Humanoid body. 5 fingers, but they were very long, followed by the last 2 being shorter. 8 feet tall easy. Black eyes. Strangest thing is I wasn't scared, but more worried about the look on its face when it realized I could see it. It stood there forever, is what it felt like. Then it raised its hand and pointed it at me. I started to feel so weak and tired. It walked over to me, and every step it made I fell back slower and lower on the bed until it was directly on top of me. Its hand still outward stretched at my head. I was now looking straight up at it. Red face, with giant black eyes staring me down. The jawline and cheeks were so defined. Very humanoid. But the brow line is what got me. Everything is very emotionless with it. But the facial expression it made was very aware of me noticing it. I didn't think it expected I was going to see it. It did something to me. Whatever it does when they first appear is how it felt at that moment. This thing fought to put me down. You could see it in its face. The strange part is that there was no fear with it. More like a comfortable friend you could always count on being there for you in any situation. Just very calm. Trust me, I know it sounds ridiculous, but for the first time in a long time my eyes are wide open. And what's the number 33? It always has to do with 33. They always come or give signs at 33 on the clock. No matter the time of day, they love to come at 3:30 or 1:33 in the morning.
In 1970, I was serving as a corporal in the U.S. Army, deployed to South Vietnam in a region about 30 miles south of the DMZ. At the time I was second in command of a squad of soldiers. We had set up a bivouac in a jungle area that had a few steep hills. That evening my section was ordered to patrol one of the small valleys west of the encampment. We moved out led by our sergeant. Not long after entering one of the small valleys we detected movement ahead of us. It seemed to be scattered activity, so we doubted it was VC, but we weren't positive. We hunkered down for about 15 minutes, getting occasional glimpses of something moving within the trees and brush. There wasn't enough light to detect what we were observing, even though the moonlight was bright that night. After a while the activity halted, so we continued to move slowly through the valley. As we approached a sheer wall on the hill, it looked like someone or something had stacked large stones and boulders in the pass in front of us. There was also an opening in the hillside that looked like a cave entrance, approximately 5 foot high and 3 foot wide, narrowing at the top. When observing the passageway, it appeared to have been cut away by machinery. The edges were smoothed with small even-spaced grooves. We were puzzled by this because we had never seen enemy caves like this, just underground tunnels. The sergeant suggested that it may be a VC supply depot, so we started to assess how we were going to investigate the cave. About this time, things got very strange. We began to notice a putrid odor emanating from the cave entrance. The only thing I can compare it to was rotting eggs and human decay. It was so revolting that a few of the soldiers were becoming ill and started to back away into the jungle, including the sergeant. I was directing a light into the entrance in order to observe anything, but there was a haze that was impossible to see through. We had no idea what was before us. The entire squad took a position in the heavy brush approximately 150 feet from the entrance, far enough not to be detected but close enough to observe the cave entrance. We quietly remained there for what seemed like forever. The jungle was strangely calm, though we heard rumbling sounds coming from the distance. It was really eerie. The sergeant was sitting near me talking to himself. It was obvious that he was frightened. I was looking at the rest of the squad, each had wide eyes and scanning the area. No one was going to doze off during this patrol. After several hours, dawn was approaching and it started to lighten up. I checked my watch, it was just before 500 hours. Just then we noticed movement in front of the cave. A being, I first thought it was a man, moved through the entrance into the clearing in front of the cave. As it stood up from a crouch, it stood at least 7 feet high and started to look in our direction. At that time, another similar-looking creature was moving out of the cave. They were making hellish, hissing sounds and looking directly at us. The only way I can describe these beings is that they looked like upright lizards. The scaly, shiny skin was very dark, almost black. Snake-like faces with forward-set eyes that were very large. They had arms and legs like a human but with scaly skin. I didn't notice a tail, though they wore long one-piece dark green robes along with a dark cap-like covering on their heads. I never noticed if they had anything on their feet. No one gave the order, it seemed like the entire squad opened fire at once. Every piece of vegetation between us and them was quickly sheared away. I yelled out a ceasefire order, at the same time I was looking in the direction of the cave. There was nothing there. We immediately checked our flank in case these things circled around us, but there was nothing. As we approached the cave, ready to resume action if needed, it became apparent that the beings had escaped, most likely back into the cave. It was soon decided to set charges and close the cave entrance. When we returned to camp, we all seemed to be in a daze. There was little discussion of the incident and we were never debriefed, so I know the sergeant never filed a report. Then again, if he did, it was kept quiet by the brass.
In 2014, the 67-year-old woman from Wales claimed that she had been abducted by aliens from other worlds countless times in her life. She remembered that her first extraterrestrial encounter happened at the age of 5.
I'm a sane, together person.
But her sanity did not help when the woman said that she had been abducted by reptile-looking aliens from the other world so many times that she could not even count.
I have been an alien abductee all my life.
Further, she added that she had not chosen this life and had never asked for any of this, but still, it had to happen to her. According to Hilary Porter, aliens had been targeting the people of Wales telepathically to harvest their genetic material for a long time. As a ufologist, she claimed that a road between 2 cities of Wales, Swansea and Cardiff, is the hot spot for alien activities. The multiple alien abductions traumatized her so much that she could not return to Wales for 40 years. She finally returned to her hometown in 2009 to visit her friend Lynelli through the same dangerous area. But within a day of her arrival, she was abducted while in bed. Hilary was convinced that aliens are already among us, and the government is doing everything possible to keep it a secret.
They know what is going on, but they are absolutely powerless to stop it.
In May 2014, Hilary attended a national conference organized by the AMAC where she shared her abduction stories with other people who had similar experiences. She recalled her first abduction when she was only 5 years old, playing in a field near her home. Suddenly, a reptilian alien came in front of her. She was pulled by arms into a disc-shaped UFO and dragged into a lift, then the door closed.
The next thing I knew, I was in a room with consoles and colored lights and little figures moving around. I was stripped and thrown onto some sort of bed. They took a really horrible, sharp instrument and they were pressing it right the way up my body while I was screaming. I can't remember anything after that.
Hilary believed that it was not her first abduction because when she was only 2, her mother noticed her frequent disappearances from their back garden and found her half a mile away. She has no memories of those disappearances. Hilary says she has been abducted so many times she has lost count and is convinced that aliens are already among us and only a government cover-up continues to keep it a secret.
They know what is going on, but they are absolutely powerless to stop it.
Hilary, who has had 2 experiences of aliens in Wales, holds the belief that extraterrestrials are targeting the Celtic tribe. The first occasion was in September 1970 as she drove home from a holiday in Ireland with her now ex-husband. She said as they headed towards the original Severn crossing, they suddenly found themselves on the outskirts of Cardiff outside a garage with no idea how they had got there.
It was damned frightening. We just blacked out and had no idea how we got there. I didn't feel well at all. My husband thought we must have gone to sleep, but that didn't explain how we got there.
Also unexplained was how the petrol level in the car hadn't gone down, she said.
When we got home, I got changed and found triangular suction marks on my stomach, blood suction marks. I thought, flipping hell, look at that.
The marks themselves quickly disappeared, and it wasn't until 7 years later that Hilary had a dream of traveling in what appeared to be a hexagonal spaceship. Within a short space of time, she started suffering flashback memories which, she believes, began to reveal what had really happened in Wales. Today, after years of studying experience phenomena, she has come to the conclusion she was teleported by aliens from another dimension.
They transport you molecularly and can create portals in a wall or closed door. In the flashbacks, I was on a beach and could see this alien being who was about 6 feet tall and wearing green coverall. I couldn't see his face, but he could communicate mind to mind and had a box around his neck for seismic testing and warned me that he was going to cause an earthquake.
When he did, they were forced to run, she said, and she got into a small round vehicle which took her and the alien onto a small oval UFO.
I thought flipping heck.
She later created a drawing of the flight deck of the UFO which shows a console and an alien moving a series of levers, which she describes as looking like those in an old-fashioned railway signal box.
Clearly a cover memory.
She believes the relatively pleasant events she recalled had been created by the aliens to hide the real nature of the traumatic experience she actually underwent. On the second occasion, she said she woke at a friend's house to find she had an unexplained black eye. Hillary revealed that her research has led her to the conclusion that aliens target certain human tribes whose genetic makeup is of more interest.
The Celtic tribes from Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Cornwall, and Brittany are definitely on the list. They are trying to make alien-human hybrids, and it seems the genetic material of these races are more compatible.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.